Never give a wren an inch. She will take a mile. That is a wren's nest on top of that dust mop. Yeah. Yep, my husband put that in a very bad place. Yep. Oh well. Guess it stays up there and I won't be using the dust mop for a while. Hey guys, I'm going to talk about leg injuries in chickens today, but I'm going to show you what I did. I dehydrated kale. Yeah, I have two kinds of kale growing in the garden, and I don't know why, because I don't like kale. I've used it in soups. Now, I used it in a soup once. It was really good. It's a Rachel Ray recipe called Red and Green Stoop. You know, what she calls her soup and stew thing, and she calls it stoop. And it uses some fresh kale. Well, I don't want to buy produce in the grocery store. Fresh produce in the grocery store is a little bit scary right now. So, I took the kale and I thought, you know, I'm going to stick that in the dehydrator. And maybe when I make soup this winter, I can bring this out and just put it in there. And I don't know if this is going to work very well. Let me know if you've ever dehydrated kale. Usually what happens is it gets fed to the chickens because they love it. They eat fresh out of the garden greens. They love the kale. I want to talk to you about leg injuries in chickens because now I have a low battery too, so I'm going to have to cut this in two pieces. Lady on Swap Meat, she says, this happened to my hen overnight, and she did a short video of this hen, and her hock was kind of stuck out in front of her, and she was couldn't bend her leg. She couldn't use her leg. And she said she was fine yesterday. This morning, this is how she is. And I said, well, it kind of appeared, one man said it looked like it was dislocated, which could be. I said, it looks like an injury. It could be that she flew off a roost and she landed wrong. Or a rooster could have jumped her and, you know. She tried to get away. She hyperextended her leg. She could have a crack. She could have a fractured bone. Hard to say exactly what's going on without an x-ray or something. But I've had to deal with various leg injuries over the years with chickens. As many know, that the rooster love of my life, my Barred Rock rooster Zane, was 18 weeks old when he was being chased by he was going up the roost and being harassed by the older hens, and he fell off the roost. And when he landed, I could tell he hurt himself when he landed. He fell down and he just kind of squatted down. Turned out, I thought he hurt his back at first, but it turns out he had permanent tendon damage, and he ended up with an infection in his hock. A lot of times leg injuries will cause an infection, a soft tissue injury will cause infection in the joint, and you'll have to give antibiotics, and you won't realize, there's no open injury, but you won't realize that you need to give antibiotics. It happens a lot with leg injuries with chickens, soft tissue damage. Well, he had permanent tendon damage in the end, and he ended up with that leg in bent position, just bent position like this all the time in front of him. But we finally fixed the infection thanks to a PhD in poultry science and a former vet tech who gave me, actually, I was using penicillin and it wasn't knocking out the infection, and I actually had to open up the joint and drain pus, and it was really bad. And finally he said, let me send you a very strong antibiotic, and he did. God bless him. He just gave it to me for free, and it was amazingly generous, and it saved Zane's life. And he gained his weight back. He lost a lot of weight trying to fight the infection, and he lived to be going on 5 years old. And very cheerful fellow, but he was crippled and he couldn't be with other chickens, except for his girlfriend Gypsy, who liked to get up there and lay her egg next to his cage. But the point is, leg injuries, you can't really tell sometimes what's going on with a leg injury. It could be something they can get over, or it could be something that causes permanent damage, or it could be something that kills them. I had one hen who was a little Belgian Danver Bantam, little bitty girl, that I picked her up one day. She was limping and acting strange, and I picked her up, and up at the very top of her leg, right in the hip socket area, it was a huge swelling, and I thought, what the heck is this? And took her, just giant, massive swelling up at the very hip area. up above one leg. Didn't know what the heck was going on. I gave her antibiotics and she went downhill and she died. Well, when I opened up that leg, what I found was the leg bone had a vertical fracture. And it had bled, and it had bled up in there, and that was where the blood had pooled. It was up in that swelling area. And it was a vertical fracture. The only thing I can figure is she flew off the roof. She either flew into the window or she landed very badly, and she fractured her leg. And it killed her. So, leg injuries are very hard to figure out what's going on in there. The only thing you can really do is give supportive care and time. Leg injuries take a long time to heal, if they're going to heal at all. Like I said, Zane's infection healed. Zane survived, and I was going to euthanize him. But, you know, he was the most cheerful rooster, full of life. But, you know, there comes a lot of baggage in taking care of a crippled bird. They can't naturally wear down their beak or their toenails. I had to keep his spur short because he was all sitting on his feet. He couldn't roost. He could hop around using his wings like crutches and his one good leg. Well, the other leg was bent up forward. So, you know, and you have to dust them be sure you always keep them dusted for mites because they can't dust bathe. I'm losing my battery, so I'm going to have to go and do part 2. Hang on, y'all. Okay, guys, sorry. Battery problems. Okay. I wanted to talk about leg injury supportive care. There's a lot of ways chickens can injure their legs. They can jump off of things and land badly. We have a impact injury. What do you call it? I don't have the word in my head. Where it hits like this and crunches up. I think it's probably what happened to that little hen. Roosters. Roosters cause a lot of leg injuries, especially if the hens resist them and they try to pull away, and a rooster squashes them and their leg is out like this. You can the pressure here when the leg is out here, not under them, can injure that joint. So I've had a lot of those kind of injuries happen. One of Atlas's daughters was injured that way. And she was walking kind of squatty and couldn't stand up, and I separated her immediately. The one thing you need to know is it takes time. A lot of people, a lot of hard-nosed, hard-line breeders, they will not take the time. They don't care if a bird is injured and the leg is never going to be exactly the same again. They just euthanize them immediately. They don't take the time to do that. But I mainly talk to backyard people, backyard breeders, backyard hobbyists, people who love their birds and they're more pets. They give them eggs, yeah, but they're also pets, okay? So, only you can make the decision about whether you want to treat a bird or you want to euthanize the bird and not pay any attention to whether they can recover or not. That's your decision. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying if you decide to take the time to see if the bird can heal, you need to provide supportive care. First thing you got to do is separate her, and it's usually a her, from other birds. You have to separate her from the flock. She's going to have a fit. She doesn't like it. She's not going to like it, but you can't help it. You need to put them on soft bedding. I have a hospital cage specifically for this reason. And I put a lot of it's up at this level right here. The bottom of it is right here. You've seen it in my barn probably if you've seen my other videos. I have soft bedding in there. I can put a heat lamp on top if it's wintertime and they need some warmth, because birds who are healing in the wintertime, they need a little extra warmth. They don't need to be shivering and trying to. They need to put all their energy into healing, not trying to keep warm. But soft bedding or padding. You need to provide extra protein. I give mine scrambled eggs. I keep beef liver in the freezer. It can be chicken liver, which is weird. People go feeding chickens chicken liver is odd. Yeah, it is. You can have beef liver or chicken liver, and you can shave off slivers of that and put it in your warm scrambled eggs. I just put the raw frozen liver. I just shave it off with the chunk of liver and put some in there. Now, don't do that very often because liver is too high in iron to feed to avian species, okay? Horses can deal with iron, birds can't. So, but the liver is loaded with B vitamins. It's chock full of B vitamins. So I will give her scrambled eggs. I will shave off a few pieces of liver into those scrambled eggs, like maybe every other day for a while. Just a few pieces, not a lot. I might squeeze a vitamin E capsule in there. If I have some polyvisol vitamins, the children's liquid vitamin that comes with the eyedropper, but without iron. It comes in two forms. It comes with iron and without iron. You've got to be sure it does not have the iron added, okay? Just sprinkle a few drops of that on the food. Extra vitamins and minerals, extra protein, a place where she cannot be chased or jumped by a rooster, where she doesn't have to fly up and jump off of anything, where she doesn't land on anything. She doesn't have to put any stress on her legs. That's what you need to do. Leg injuries take time to heal, if they're going to heal. Some heal, some don't. But you don't know until you take the time to provide the care to see if that's going to happen. You know, Zane's leg injury did heal. He had permanent damage. His leg was in a locked position. One of them was. His whole life was different after that. He was not going to be, couldn't be my flock rooster. But he still could watch the skies. He had a window right next to his cage. His cage was in a coop with the Orpingtons. So he could see them. He could see out the window. He could see out the doors. He could still alarm. He could still crow from a sitting position. And crow he did. And he could still do a lot of the things that roosters do. Just be a sentry. Just be a guard. And he could do that. He couldn't run out there to meet the enemy or anything like that, like many roosters do, but he could still watch. And that's the main function that they do anyway. So, you know, quality of life, you have to decide for yourself if they're going to have a quality of life. My little hen with the vertical fracture, I couldn't save her. She might have been able to heal. I had her separated. I don't know how long it had been fractured by the time I found her, because she was one that didn't really like to be held a lot. And I just noticed it when she was walking funny, and I could actually catch her. And I knew something was wrong because I could catch her. So, but extra protein, soft bedding, place where they cannot fly up to roost. They need to just lay there in soft bedding. They don't have to be chased. They cannot be mated. They can't have weight on their back. And time. And you've got to see if they actually... now, another thing too, aspirin. You can add aspirin for swelling. Now, if there's bleeding, you don't want to do that right away. But if you don't know that there's bleeding, a baby aspirin, you can, or half of a regular 325 milligram aspirin. You could crush that up, really fine powder, stir it into the eggs, and you could put that in. You could put that into the scrambled eggs, and whatever or oatmeal or whatever you're feeding the hen. Disguise the aspirin, the aspirin bitter taste, and but don't do that every day. You know, half a regular aspirin, or just an 81 milligram low dose aspirin, or crushed baby aspirin, which is the 81 milligram anyway, I do believe. So, you know, an aspirin a day, a couple of baby aspirin, or half a regular aspirin every other day, or maybe a couple of days in a row at the beginning when you find the problem, and then taper that off, because you don't want to continually give them aspirin forever and ever. Amen. You know, but just to help offset the pain and maybe some of the swelling. But really, it's just time. It's just time and not stressing the legs. The leg or legs, whatever's wrong. Now, what a lot of people are going to do, they're going to right away, if you say, what's wrong with my hen, they're going to go, maybe she's got Marek's disease. I don't know why people go right to the worst case scenario. If you got a 5-year-old hen, she doesn't have Marek's disease. Marek's disease is a disease of the young, somebody told me I had Merrick's disease on my flock, I would laugh in their face, because I've never had any young birds with symptoms like that. It's just not possible. It just is not the case. You've got to have your own knowledge base here, people. You've got to get your own knowledge base, and you got to get it from actual reference materials, not just from your backyard people who go, well, you know, it just could be Merrick's disease, you know, or you need to cull that bird, because people think they know a lot when they really don't, sadly. That's just the long and short of it. But you make the decision. If you think you need to euthanize your hen, if she is showing signs of depression, if she doesn't want to eat, you have to couple. If she's really hurt right away, she may not be eating a lot anyway. But say you think she's really going downhill, you make the decision. You have to make the decision. And you know what? If you take time to make that decision, don't let anybody guilt you into rushing it. Or don't let anybody guilt you if you decide to euthanize your bird instead of doing a long-term care thing. Don't let them guilt you about that either, because the bird is right there in your hands. You know what you feel. You know this animal. You know what you think is the truth about the situation. You may not know the exact cause of the leg injury. You may not know if it's a dislocated hock joint, or if it's a fracture, or if it was hyperextended and it's just very painful. You may not know what really is the cause of it, but whether you want to see to trying to make it better or not is entirely up to you. I just told you about how I give supportive care when I have a hen who appears to have a leg injury. Sometimes a leg injury is not really a leg injury either. Sometimes things can look like other things. I mean, it can look like a leg injury and it can be something else. Years ago, I had a hen, one of my original flock, who lived to be 5 years old. She was my next oldest lived original hen. She was walking where she couldn't stand up. She was like squatting on the ground like a duck, just squat walking. I thought, what the heck is wrong with her? Did she hurt her leg? I come to find out she was bloated, and there were things pressing on nerves, and she couldn't stand up because of that. It wasn't anything to do with a leg injury, so it wasn't her legs. It just looked like her legs. She had reproductive cancer. She died not long after that. But things can be deceiving. Appearances can be deceiving. Just like that little hen who had the big swelling on her hip joint, and the injury was nothing to do with her hip. It had to do with the fracture, and the fracture was bleeding. It was bleeding, and blood was pooling up there. Stranger things have happened. There are so many things that happen with chickens that are just not in a textbook. And the longer you have them, the more you'll find that out. So I hope this was helpful for you a little bit. Unless you have a vet you can take a hen to and you can have an x-ray done, 99% of the time you're not going to know exactly what's going on inside there. All you can do is supportive care, and either they're going to get better and their leg's going to work better again, or they're going to get better with permanent damage but they'll still be able to get around, or they're not going to get better at all. So, but in order to know what that outcome is going to be, it's going to take some time. Leg injuries just take time. So, y'all have a wonderful day, and I miss Zane every day. He was the most cheerful rooster who loved life, and all the broodies trusted him with their babies on the ground. He was amazing. It was just the craziest thing I ever saw. Even hens that weren't even in his group would let their babies around him, and they get close, and unless they pestered him, he didn't do anything, or he'd just gently thunk them on the head, you know, if they really bugged him too much, like, get away kid, you bother me. But it was just the cutest thing ever, and I just adored Zane. When I broke my ankle and I couldn't see my chickens for a couple of months, the first thing I did when I rolled out in my wheelchair was said, bring me Zane, and I just grabbed hold of him and hugged him. I missed him so much. So, you know, yeah, I love my birds. And I don't think I'd ever want to do that again. Take care of a bird that long. I have a crippled bird right now. She's been crippled for a couple of years now. She still gets around, but she goes backwards. But she's over 12. She can't live much longer. But she's happy, and she's loud, and she's talkative, and, you know, so when they get depressed and they don't want to live anymore, you know when that is. So have a great day, everybody. Talk to y'all later. Bye.